Oh, it started immediately. It's fine. I'll cut the meeting. What's up, guys? It's Chris. I have the honor of interviewing Michael Bramlich today, the CEO of Quid, the marketplace that you've been heard talk about a lot recently. Has been around for a couple years. Definitely making some moves in the Web3 space in the right direction. Huge honor to be able to interview Michael. So, how's it going today, Michael?
Chris, it's going great. Thanks so much for having me.
For sure, for sure. We're gonna take a look at some exciting things as far as Quid goes, some upcoming drops, some utility, some all kinds of stuff during this interview. We're also gonna hit some hard questions during this interview that some of the community or some other communities might feel. I basically raised a poll on Twitter. A lot of people responded, and I'm going to try to get as many of those that make sense into this interview as I possibly can. So we're going to take a look at some hard questions in just a bit. The first question is just in general, like not only how you are, but how's Quid doing? How is the market looking? Like, how's this season for you guys?
Yeah, no, and obviously thanks for having us. Thanks for talking about Quid. Quid's doing really well. But one quick correction. So we've been around for longer than a couple of years. We've been around since really 2016. So we're one of the earliest marketplaces for digital collectibles and NFTs. We actually like to sort of make the little joke that we actually predated NFTs. But things are going really, really well. We're super pleased with the marketplace. Data looks good. The upcoming drops are really exciting. We're a pretty sort of product and technology focused company, and the roadmap is also like super exciting. So, yeah, we're pleased with where we are today, and I think if you tune into Quid, Q4 is going to be super exciting.
Heck yeah. And later in this interview, if you actually wanted to pull up the roadmap or just talk more about the roadmap, I'd be happy to take a look at it. Some of the upcoming things. So awesome, man. Yeah, 2016. That's actually when I started my business as well. A lot smaller than Quid. But I started my coffee shop in 2016.
Yeah.
So it's
Nice.
been quite some years. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the questions. I have them all written or all typed out so I can see them. So give me just a minute to pull these up. So the first question, it is probably going to start off with the heaviest hitter. That way people don't see the title of this video and think, oh, we just avoided these questions. One of the heaviest hitters that I saw asked by a couple of people is, there are a couple of people concerned about the original social media approach being aggressive, particularly towards VV. They noticed that this has changed quite a bit. So it's not a particular question, but would you just like to address this in general?
Yeah, sure. So, well, first of all, the individual that was in that role is no longer in that role. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
We did a little bit of digging as to where some of that animosity might have come from. And there's a few videos on the internet that are out there that you can sort of suss out and find where we may not have been the ones to fire the first shot, so to speak. So I think you had someone that was an employee of Quid that was incredibly passionate about what we were doing and had been doing for years, and felt that actually they were wronged in a video on the internet that sort of was out years ago. And I think that built up some dissatisfaction, some sense of being disgruntled, and that probably came out on social. But I think what you can say is a couple of things. One is that person's no longer in that role, and I think some of that angst is probably gone from our community. The other is, you mentioned Web3. We're becoming more and more of a Web3 company. We're sort of Web 2.5, I'd consider right now. And it's obviously a space with really big ambitions where everything is super early. And we actually, all of our communities need to sort of bind together and work together towards like a much bigger ultimate objective. So, what we're really sort of interested in doing right now is sort of growing the industry. And if that helps grow Quid, wonderful, right? But we're really all about popularizing the idea of collecting digital things, right? Where they only exist, in the internet or on the cloud somewhere, and where, kids will prefer to collect things digitally and things that aren't made of cardboard or plastic. So yeah, I think that was an unfortunate kind of period for us with social media. I think the tone has changed immensely. And I think that the ultimate objective of really anybody in the space should be to continue to popularize this behavior, right? Because ultimately, like, it is so incredibly early, and there's so much opportunity here that I don't think different sort of companies are actually treading on each other's territory. right? And you can actually draw really stark differences and contrasts between Recur and Quid and VV and even some of the Top Shot ones. You really put those next to each other, and to say that they're doing the same thing is actually inaccurate. So we all kind of benefit when we all sort of talk positively, when we all band together, and when we all try to sort of popularize this behavior to a mainstream audience.
Yeah, man, great answer. And yeah, there's always two sides to every coin, you know, two sides to every story. So I appreciate you giving that feedback. And I'm a big component of everyone in the space winning, because like obviously I want, my desire as a Web3 content creator is for mass adoption. And if we get mass adoption, it's not like people are only going to want Recur, only going to want VV, only going to want Quid. Like there's so many different avenues, you know, and that was one of my things that re-sparked me for Quid is the, I saw the partnership with Sandbox. I saw the Mintables feature. I thought it was really cool. Actually, I'm sure you saw it, but I made that video on minting, pulling an Atari patch and then pulling it out and putting it into a MetaMask wallet on the Ethereum blockchain. And actually, you know, Instagram just got their digital collectibles tab, so I actually flexed it on Instagram to where you could like see that it's an NFT. You know, you can see that it shines differently. So I thought that's really cool. Kind of off track too, but you guys did just also launch your entire Quid. I forgot what it's called, but as Mintables, that whole set. What set was that?
Quid Labs, which is
Quid Labs as Mintables.
It's a pretty extensive collection, but I think it's interesting you bring that up, because there are. When I say that there's some contrast between us and some of the other players in the space, ultimately it really boils down to probably different preferences, right? Like what form factor you want to collect, how much money you want to spend. You know, are you mortgaging a house to buy the collectible, or are you spending disposable income because it's fun, right? And what I think what's cool is when you look at all these companies in this space, it's really non-overlapping, it's really complementary, and each one of us has a bit of a different approach, right? What the product type is, what blockchain it's on, how it's sold, if it's an auction or a pack, is it part of a set or is it a single standalone item? Is it meant to be put on display, or is it meant to be more like a tradable asset that can be, you know, moved in a highly liquid aftermarket? So what's really interesting about the space, I think, is these different approaches that each of us is taking, and to sort of almost tie your first question to your second question with Mintables and with the Sandbox, you know, we will never mislead. We will never say something is an NFT when it's not, because we hold the notion of true digital ownership like really sacred, right? And so we're very upfront with Quid, which items are digital collectibles and are stored off-chain on our servers, and which items are mintables, which can be minted to the Ethereum blockchain and stored in your self-custody wallet, which currently is MetaMask, but will be more wallets and more blockchains in the future. So to sort of tie those two questions together, each of us in the space really has different approaches to true digital ownership. Each of us have different approaches to blockchains. Each of us have different approaches to what exactly an NFT, you know, is. For us, we really prefer to take an approach that is around partnering. And I think you could consider is around kind of a graduation of the experience. You know, NFTs aren't for everybody, right? Maybe a diehard Disney fan or a diehard Game of Thrones fan or a diehard Rick and Morty fan doesn't mind collecting off chain, right? Or maybe they happen to own something super valuable, and like baseball cards, you don't want to store something valuable under your bed, and maybe they want to mint it into an NFT. So
sure.
You know, our approach ultimately is we want to partner heavily. We want to be multi-chain, not single chain. And when we do integrate with a chain, we're going to educate customers that when they do mint it, it is, I think, closer to that ideal state of true digital ownership, which if it's in your self-custody wallet with MetaMask on Ethereum and it's compatible with the Sandbox, then now what you have is an item that can be converted into a playable game piece in one metaverse or multiple metaverses. So we like to say that, like, we hold some of these principles very sacred, right? If it's going to be called an NFT, it's got to totally be an NFT. If you talk about interoperability, you actually have to have partnerships and agreements and compatibility in place with that metaverse. as opposed to just sort of say, oh, hey, maybe we might do this, in the future. So I think for our approach, whether it's Mintables, whether it's how we sort of accurately label and all of the items in our marketplace, whether it's a partnership approach, like we really want to be the company that's doing the hard work, like in the here and now, to make these promises real today, right? So compatibility with the sandbox, you're going to see that very, very soon. Also you're just going to see more and more chain support where it's
Awesome.
true chain support.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing too, is like we had a problem years ago when we started to look at customer data at how our early collectors were valuing these items. I mean, they were spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on the biggest grails, right? And that became kind of a problem because that's a lot of value that you sort of hold in custody for somebody else, right? And so when we came to the blockchain, it was for the most natural, authentic, organic reasons, because we had this pre-established problem of customers holding these digital objects that they value deeply and that they wanted to give to their kids or grandkids and own for 100 years. Now, what's a technology really good for that? The blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So I think you'll find like our approach is a little bit different. We really hold the notion of true digital ownership sacred. We believe the term NFT shouldn't be watered down. If you're going to call it as such, it's got to be interoperable and compatible, and frankly, be multi-chain. And so that's kind of how I think we might differ from others in this.
No, I love the multi-chain approach as well. I consider myself a chain agnostic. I mainly trade on ETH, but like I've minted in AVAX, I've minted in Solana.
Yep.
I've looked at Stacks. I'm interested in Stacks, but I've never personally used Stacks. I don't know if you saw, but like a pretty big project, Sappy Seals, is actually moving from Stacks to from Ethereum to Stacks, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So I think multi-chain is the way to go as well.
But even, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but even think about like the merge that just happened. What was it, last week or the week before? Right? Like a big criticism of NFTs on Ethereum were like energy consumption costs, right?
Yes.
And think about how dramatically that's been reduced. So here's what I would say. Like if you're putting the collector first, you want to give them as much choice as possible. And as much choice as possible really has to be to support as many ecosystems and blockchains as there are out there.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And the last thing I'll say before we move on to the next question that I got from somebody is I saw Walmart just dropped their own metaverse inside of Roblox today. That was a big announcement. But it's still not really NFT based. And I was just thinking of that transition. I think this is a step in the right direction because the metaverse is an immersive experience, but you still don't have true ownership over those assets. Sure, some people are okay with that, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're dependent on those Roblox servers or you're dependent on Walmart. But if Walmart wants to take it to the next level, these people that are spending all this money to buy their assets in the game, they still will need to be able to realize those on chain in order to have like full ownership of that or be able to sell it or keep it safe. So just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we actually see that in our own data. Like the benefit of having a marketplace that can deal with off-chain and on-chain items simultaneously is you can look at how customers are valuing them. And our own data tells us that Mintables that at the discretion of the owner can move it on chain. Those sell for about 10x the clearing prices of non-mintables. So we're already showing with consumer data that that our collectors, many of which are mainstream collectors who see this as a way to scratch an itch they would otherwise scratch with something made of paper or plastic, that they're already valuing an item that can go to the blockchain. Like they're valuing portability, they're valuing interoperability, and they're voting with their wallets because they're willing to spend 10x 10x what an off-chain collectible would be just for that utility of being able to bring it on and off a chain at will. So that's why I actually think what we're going to wind up with is kind of a gradation of digital collectibles and digital game assets and metaverse game pieces where some will be premium and some will be imbued with more utility because they can travel. Others might not sell for as much because they do have that risk of being locked up in a centralized server, but it doesn't mean someone doesn't want to collect both, right?
Yeah. And
experience both the high end and maybe the low end.
Sure. Awesome. This next question actually is relevant to our conversation right now. It's a pretty in-depth question. I just lost it. Give me just a second. I have a ton. Okay. So this is from Chris Reyes on Twitter. if you had to mention that Mintable was like a superpower and like a cape, it could be put in the older non-mintable items. I saw this possible last month in a vid on Interstellar Reality with a shock sticker of Crescentia Affluion being a usable avatar in Sandbox. Is that
You literally picked the question with like the most unpronounceable words.
I know.
No. So we did drop a teaser video that hinted at the integration that is sort of forthcoming with the Sandbox, where items that are digital collectibles, like two-dimensional trading cards on Quid that were sold as off-chain items, then one day woke up and got the Mintable utility. And then what we can do with Mintables is we can create different smart contracts. So you're literally minting into one smart contract that gives you compatibility with that metaverse. So imagine having an item on Quid that you as the collector can decide if you want to put it on chain or not. And then when you decide to put it on chain, you can select, well, what blockchain do I want? Yeah. And then which compatible experience do I want to bring this item into, right? So it's the very early pipes of this sort of interoperability promise that a lot of people in Web3 talk about, but we're sort of, I think, doing the hard work to build the actual pipes to make it happen. But what I think about it that is really cool is it's not just interoperability and compatibility. It's also the notion that an object that you own off-chain on Quid at any moment can be converted to a mintable, and at any moment could have a new support for a new blockchain, support for a new third-party marketplace beyond just OpenSea and Rarible, and support for any new metaverse. Like there's this really cool thing where you can convert a two-dimensional digital trading card of a character into a fully three-dimensional and playable avatar in the Sandbox. And I think that's just one integration, almost like one spoke on like a hub and spoke model of what will eventually become thousands of spokes.
That's cool. I want to add this real quick. I actually did not include this question to ask you because I felt like the guy was being facetious, but it's relevant to what you just said. He said basically, what can I do with a sticker, or what can I do with stickers? But that's a pretty cool concept, because it, like, is that possible for some of the things on Quid?
Absolutely. I mean, do you know how, like, when Gary Vee did a bunch of his drops, right? It was
I'm a holder of his VeeFriends, right? And
VeeFriends isn't just the collectible, it's not just the art, it's not just the character, but if you're a holder of that object, it's almost functions as a passport or a ticket for these events. And so, by the nature of holding it, you get this unfolding utility over the life of the object. And what we're beginning to experiment with, like actually technically behind the scenes, is taking old vintage inventory and starting to imbue them with this ability to travel, so portability on chain, and then with this notion of a conversion process where the image of a person actually becomes the person once you bring it into that metaverse to run around with. So we have tens of thousands of these spokes to set up. And that's, A, why we're incredibly early, but B, why this is really just an experiment at this point. But that's kind of, what it is. Any object that you hold on Quid, even if it's vintage inventory from 2016, that potential is in play, right?
Awesome. There's some good speculation plays that could be made over that.
Well, I mean, you've seen some of the brands that maybe they're not the extreme big popular brands that we've released over the years on Quid, but you've seen more and more collections basically flip the switch and go to Mintable. And I think what you'll see is this dual action of more and more collections flipping the switch to go to Mintable, and then more and more smart contracts being layered into that individual item. So it's like, well, I mean, I can bring it into Decentraland, or I can bring it into the Sandbox, or I can bring it into basically a growing menu of places where you can bring that object. So we're like fully compatible with OpenSea and Rarible. You can mint and list on those third-party marketplaces, simply by going through our minting process and then connecting your MetaMask wallet to OpenSea. But you could imagine more marketplaces from there, right? And that's where it's like we're very principled about this idea of like true digital ownership. And when you call something an NFT, it's got to meet certain standards, right? One of which is like the thing's got to live, independent of the original issuing marketplace. Like you should be able to cancel your Quid account, but still have your minted NFT and go on your merry way, right? You should be able to bring it to a third-party marketplace if there's more action on that marketplace. So, yeah, that's one of the things I think you're going to see us sort of like really, really principled about, because what we don't want to have happen is like the waters are muddied about what an NFT means or what that utility is. It's really tough because as these digital collectibles go up in value, you almost need like an ever expanding disclaimer of all the places you can take it and all the things that it can do, almost like a nutrition label for the NFT. And I think the space will get there. And it's also another reason why like it's incumbent upon the existing players to kind of work together, right? And not muddy the waters of what an NFT is, and ensure that if something truly is interoperable, it's like very upfront and very much part of the buying experience to be like, oh yeah, cool. Like I can bring this to OpenSea. Yeah, I'll buy it and mint it.
Yeah, for sure. And if OpenSea flags it, you can take it off and go. Because if it's in your MetaMask wallet, you could take it to Lookshare, you could take it to X2Y2, SudoSwap, any of those as well.
Exactly.
Which I've done. I not just with Quid, but like I've had OpenSea have flagged a collection. I degen as well, so I've bought flagged collections and brought them to other marketplaces because I've had people come out.
Oh, sorry. It's so cool that you mentioned degen. I think what I'll just share with you and with your community is like we're definitely seeing degen behavior on our platform in our marketplace, but from folks who don't know what an NFT is. Mm-hmm. Like legit, like we can see all the data and we're like, whoa, this is very degen, right?
Yeah.
But it turns out it's someone that when we speak to him or speak to her, they're like, what's an NFT? They're like, I just like thought this was cool to like trade these, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really encouraging, right? Because a lot of companies talk about, billions of people are going to own these NFTs. We actually have data from our actual customers that's like, whoa, this person's like heavily engaged in this behavior. Like they love digital collecting, and they're not even here because of like it being called an NFT and any sort of notions that might represent. They're just here because they love it. They want to complete the set. They like the action in the aftermarket. They like the fact that they can, withdraw with only $100 in sales proceeds. Like we're seeing really emergent degen behavior from people that wouldn't know what the word degen even means.
That's funny. That's funny. It makes sense. I'll move on to the next question. Keep on losing my little list here. This one I put under difficult. It's talking about, I had a couple people under that post ask about suspended accounts. Just wondering if there's any change toward support tickets coming up in the near future or anything as far as support goes. I did have one guy particularly that had quite a bit invested in Quid, and he reached out to me personally about it. I'm not going to bring out, obviously personal cases. And I see this on other platforms as well, but I just told them I would ask this.
Yeah, this is like this is a big important topic that kind of evolves every day, in large part because when we started in 2016, we had no idea the amount of value that our collectors will put on these objects. Right. We didn't start out thinking that we'd have to build like Coinbase or like Robinhood. Right. We didn't think we would need account protection measures like 2FA. But we were sort of forced into adding those because it became very, very clear that people have established relationships with their objects. They've paid good money for them. And there's many, many, many successful sellers on the platform that are able to, withdraw their sales proceeds and take their spouse out to dinner, right? Or help pay down student debt or whatever the use of the funds might be when they get off ramped to the real world. So the whole issue of like account recovery for Quid users that joined in 2017 because Mr. Beast, sent them there from a YouTube video that forgot their password. The whole issue of deleting accounts, the whole issue of sort of getting back into account if you've been suspended. It's something we take like incredibly seriously. And like one big change we released recently is I encourage all Quid users on iOS or Android to go check out the web. The web market.onquid.com is getting features faster than iOS and Android. And you'll find a lot of like my account style features in that version of the web. So basically what I'm saying is like the whole issue of like accounts and suspensions and whether or not like we want to hold on to someone's digital collectibles like for infinity if they've been suspended it's a real sticky issue. But I think, again, for your viewers, the way that we're sort of putting our money where our mouth is in the development of features like 2FA. We're adding even greater protocols for account retrieval, right? So if like you really want to get back into your collectibles because you had an awesome collection in 2018 and now you want to see what you can flip them for in the marketplace, like, but you forgot your password and username, like there's a whole new flow that we're establishing in a few weeks that you'll be like expedited right into a customer service a funnel to like basically answer security questions to get back into your account. So I think the net of it is, over the course of like the 5 or 6 years of Quid, and we underestimated how much like account protection, account retrieval, all that would have to be created. But we're catching up really, really quickly right now. On the topic of account suspensions, I would say basically it's going to get a whole lot better before the end of the year.
Okay.
We're adding a much needed feature called Message Center as our next epic that will start being built in October. We'll probably release in November. That'll be effectively your inbox for everything that's going on in Quid, whether it's somebody wishes an item that you have and you can list it and sell it to them, whether we have an auction format and you want to track the number of bids that are made on it, or in this case, if you've engaged in bad behavior in the marketplace, like let's say wash trading, and your account is temporarily suspended, you'll be able to get all those messages in a single spot in your Quid experience. That will make it so that if you are indeed suspended for bad behavior, you'll know why, you'll know how long it lasts, and you'll know ultimately like what the next step will be, so you won't be left hanging. But I would say it's a very sticky issue for the industry, which is like, if someone's a jerk in Discord, like should that affect their access to their account in the marketplace? Like actually probably not, right? Like collectors need to have the full freedom to say good and bad things about their collectibles or the company that issued them or the marketplace that helps you buy and sell them. And you should have that freedom, and that should be independent of sort of how you trade in the marketplace. So I think you're gonna see some announcements from us, some policy changes from us, and certainly some functionality from us in October that I think will give collectors a lot more peace of mind that their off-chain collectibles, those that they haven't yet minted, but their off-chain collectibles are safe with us as a steward of their collectibles.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's something that's always been a big fear of mine for digital collecting is I haven't had that on any platform, but I know people that have, getting suspended, and what do? Especially if you have a lot of money. And like you said, at the end of the day, some of the platforms probably didn't even expect those values to be the way they are. But now you're sitting on a 6-figure NFT portfolio that, you don't have access to it. But again, it's not just a Quid thing. There's a lot of platforms like that. I personally haven't ran into the issue, but it just seems like a nightmare for the innocent people.
No, totally. And we've gotten there in a very authentic way because we've sort of lived that evolution, right? Where we don't need to sit and spend a ton of time thinking about account policy and account management, because it started out as people having fun. In the same way with baseball cards, right? Like started out as fun, you put them in your bike spokes, you'd complete sets with them, and then all of a sudden jump cut 30 years later, and they're now incredibly valuable, culturally relevant, irreplaceable pieces of art that auction for millions of dollars. Like you've got to up your game as the collectible evolves from something fun into something very, very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's good. The next question. So I'm, as you can tell with the format, I'm kind of going difficult, general. Let's see. This one is pretty cool. Not for trade, it was the name of the Twitter handle. How have your experiences from being at Microsoft, Nokia, and Topps helped you at running Quid? So I guess kind of a personal question.
Yeah, it's someone asked a personal question like a week or two ago in a similar forum, and I'm like, whoa, dude, like I got to get on like the therapist couch. Like that's way too like going way too deep on me there. No, I'd say really it's it was my time at Microsoft that started a fascination with companies that were more technology centric and that were more interested in using their technology as tools for somebody else to be successful, right? That sounds a bit abstract, but if you think about what Microsoft did that was so effective, was they didn't actually build their own PCs, right? They had an operating system and they partnered aggressively with other companies that wanted to make desktops and laptops, right? You think about also like the software stack, like they had an operating system, and yes, they had a killer stack of applications like Office and Word, and PowerPoint and all that. But developers could openly build on top of that operating system, right?
Mhm.
And so because they were aggressive about being a platform and partnering with just about everybody, whether it's hardware manufacturers, device makers and distributors, software developers, they built an ecosystem around themselves, right? That makes them really, really difficult to remove. And they've even done it more recently with this thing called Microsoft Azure, which is like AWS. But now so many websites and so many mission critical web applications run on servers that are in some data center that are powered by Microsoft. So my big takeaway from that experience that we've really applied to Quid is like partner,
Mhm.
right? Don't attempt to build everything yourself, because it's very difficult to be the best metaverse out there or to be the best, game maker out there, right? It's also very difficult to win every coveted drop, right? But
Mhm.
there are ways that you can, um, take the approach to your company or take the approach to the technology you build that is very inclusive. And you're like, hey, maybe this feature isn't just for us. Like maybe this feature is for this merchant or that merchant or this merchant that will build on top of Quid in the future.
Sweet. Yeah. Hence, working with Sandbox, instead of saying I'm going to make my own metaverse, say this is one of the leaders in the space, so I'm just going to work with their metaverse. I really like that approach, because you can't have your hand in too many baskets, and it just makes more sense at the end of the day to team up with people who that's their main focus.
Well, and that's the beauty of Web3, right? And hopefully Web3 becomes something that is realized as opposed to just talked about, right? But we're talking about open, not closed metaverses, right? We're talking about putting the owner at the center, where they have the
Yeah.
agency to move things in and out of these environments because they want to, uh, and not because there's a closed ecosystem and a walled garden that's been put up, around these games, around these metaverses. So not only is it like practical when you have a business to want to build bridges and be very open, but it's probably better in the long run for the collector and the owner.
Yeah. I love it, man. Like the wheels in my head started turning when talking about like the cross chain stuff earlier. Like I'm thinking in the future, Disney has been pushing like Polygon. So if you wanted to take your collectible, hypothetically, if you wanted to take your collectible and put it on Polygon to integrate with Disney's metaverse, you could do so. Or if you wanted to put it back on ETH because you wanted to sell it on a ETH-based marketplace, or put it on Solana, whatever. Like that's kind of what I think of. Again, purely hypothetical. It could be with any brand, but
Yeah,
it makes sense to me that you could change it to this chain for this marketplace, or this chain for this utility, or this
yeah,
interoperable metaverse. Like
yeah,
it's just kind of cool to think about.
totally. And it's like largely the constraints to that in the past have been like one of business models and economics, right? Where like these large companies think they can make more money if it's closed, right? Because they're used to selling digital goods and digital drops and largely monetizing the initial sale of the object. But what's so cool about NFTs and about the new business model around these secondary markets where items can buy and sell for crypto or cash with the ability to withdraw is, the original issuer can still generate revenue years
Yes.
after the initial issuance of the good. And like the consequence of that should frankly be fewer drops. It should be less saturation, right? And it should be more utility long term, because this space should enable someone like Disney to make revenue in 2023 from an asset they sold in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
which has never really been done before in this space, or in physical collectibles or in games ever. So it's super, super cool. And like all the sort of theoretical things are there to enable like an open metaverse. It's just, we got to get everyone on board. And I think most importantly, the big companies will come on board if people like us, right, the
Yes.
actual collectors demand it.
No, absolutely. And you do see a lot of companies getting on board during this bear market. Again, Disney launched their accelerator program in Web3. They just recently hired a Web3 lawyer, I'm assuming just to watch their back end when the government comes smashing down on them. Starbucks is launching their own project for their loyalty rewards. Puma, Nike, like all kinds of like massive Fortune 500 brands are jumping in, in the space during this bear market. So it's really cool to see that expansion coming. And I do think it's going to be significant for platforms like Quid that are already here. How that integration will look, I feel like don't really know exactly, but it's going to be huge for platforms that are already here.
Mhm.
I'll move on to the next question. Let's see where it was at. So I just asked about your personal experiences. So we're going to go back to a difficult one. This is from somebody in my Discord. They're asking for any like marketplace UI updates. She was saying that she likes a lot of stuff on Quid, but she almost gets a little confused in the marketplace. She said sometimes it can seem like a jumble sell. Is there any, I guess just like in general, is there any UI updates coming, or has that ever been asked or addressed before?
Yeah, of course. So I think two things. One is at the end of September, we'll do a sort of a Q3 retrospective and an update on the roadmap in Q4, right? So that like very transparently, our community of collectors can see, what we've built, whether we hit our milestones or not, right? And then what's weeks or months away, sort of coming imminently in Q4. It's a really good question because I think there are some areas of our marketplace that are really strong. Like if you engage in the secondary market on the web, it's really easy to see similar items that are listed. It's really easy to sort of do research before you decide to buy something, from somebody else, right? You can see concurrent listings, you can see past sales history, you can see provenance of items. So if you're hunting for like an individual item, on the web, I think we do quite well in terms of giving you a lot of sort of metadata and sales data about the item to make the right sort of purchase decision. But the web has some deficiencies in that the chases that we do around collection and the primary market doesn't really poke through yet, and that should come in the next month or so. The apps on iOS and Android, it's a bit of a jumble. I think you're going to see a real streamlining of that experience so that, we've got this upcoming Florida Cat drop, which we're all really excited about on Thursday, that basically we're going to make it super, super streamlined. So if you want to participate in that drop, you want to rip packs, or you want to list and flip on the aftermarket, or you want to complete your set, we're going to take what was like 3 to 5 different screens that you had to bounce around from, and we're going to consolidate that into one place. So, I hear that person loud and clear. I think what's exciting is in the roadmap and in my own personal use of the product and knowing where it's deficient, like what we're going to build should line up with the solutions to those problems. So just to reiterate, our roadmap is 2FA is going to come out on iOS and Android to match 2FA on the web. At some point, wink, wink, we're going to want all of our users to set up 2FA to further secure their collection. Yeah. So, be forewarned on that. Then in October, we're doing a feature that is terribly unsexy by name, but is really going to streamline the experience for collectors in a drop. It's called Event Calendar. Basically, you'll be able to see a running list of all the drops that are happening, like 7 days out or 14 days out. You'll be able to subscribe to them so you never miss a drop. And
sweet. That's awesome.
You'll be able to do it concurrently from the web or from the apps, because that's sort of what distinguishes Quid here from, I think, a lot of other players in the space, like a VV or a Recur, is that we've got a lot of assortment, a lot of variety. The price points for blind purchase packs to buy into these drops is really, really reasonable, like $2, $5, $10.
Yeah.
The aftermarket sales prices could be anywhere from $10 to $2,000, right? And there's just a lot of variety, right? It's not a drop every 2 weeks, right? It could be drops to buy into every 3 days, every 4 days, with some variety there. So we'll fix a bit of it with Event Calendar in October. Then after that, there's this thing called Message Center, which is also like the lamest name for a very sexy feature that really will make the marketplace a lot less opaque, a lot more transparent. If someone's trying to collect an item that you own, maybe you'll be notified of that. Maybe you'll have suggestions as to what to list, because our data suggests that you own an item that could clear for $1,000, right? With like a 75% probability of doing so. So the marketplace will get a lot more transparent, and the ability to sort of like buy into a drop or flip items from a drop or complete an old set should be streamlined
Cool.
come November.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And just having, so like, I guess I'm focusing on the name too much, but like, just to reiterate, it will help you kind of schedule the upcoming drops better too, right? Like by event calendar.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Imagine being able to see out over the next 14 days and understand what sets are dropping when.
Sweet.
Where you can do some of your research, you can dig in, you can get a sense of like, hey, are a lot of people putting this on their watch list, or
Cool.
is it pretty fallow? So I think what you'll find is we have a lot of transparency in our aftermarket about like past sales and current sales. You're going to see that same level of transparency exist around upcoming drops. So if you really like the drop experience, if you really want to buy in, maybe spend $20 or even $10 or even $200 to rip open packs, like you'll know when that's going to happen, like next Tuesday, right? You won't have to be like jump scared, like that morning of to know that it's coming. And you'll see that in the product itself. You won't have to fish out an email from your spam folder. It'll be right there in the product, like
Sweet.
What's coming and what's like 7 days away or 5 days away or 3 days away. So I think a lot of our best customers will be served, those folks that really like, our frequent drops. I think they'll really find this handy to really never miss a drop again.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super convenient for people like me too that are just involved in so much. It's kind of hard to remember what all is going on, even stuff that I really like and I'm really excited for.
Yeah.
So having something like that would be awesome for organizational skills. I literally fill out my Google Calendar with everything upcoming, but it's annoying because it takes me a ton of time to do it. Okay, cool. So this is a really interesting question. It's somebody it's dope asked if it said when crypto payout, but like I guess just like is crypto payout in the future? Do you see that being something that Quid's going to integrate?
100%. So right now, let's back up and say where we've been. We were, I think, the first to do fiat payout. In fact, when we switched over from a coin wallet to a cash wallet, really it was December 2020, I think. And so all of last year, we set up a cash wallet. The cash wallet would be used to debit and credit for any purchases you made of packs or any purchases you made of aftermarket items or any sales that you made. And then we had set up as well fiat off ramps. So you could use in-app purchase or you could use credit card via Stripe to deposit more funds into your cash wallet. And what we did that I think really was a first in the industry was we didn't sort of set that up and promise cash out in the future. We actually had cash out established from day one. So if you had enough sales proceeds, if you qualified to withdraw funds, you could do it every Friday, right? And we still sort of consistently do these weekly withdrawals via PayPal. So we handle really smoothly like USD in and USD out, and have one of the lowest withdrawal minimums really anywhere on the planet. You have to KYC, of course. There can't be any bad behavior in our marketplace like watch trading, but your sales proceeds don't need to be in the tens of thousands to be able to withdraw some funds because you made a great sale. And again, maybe you want to go, take someone to a date on Friday night, right? Now the question of when crypto, I think it will be fairly confident of this by end of this year in that cryptocurrencies will be supported for deposits and withdrawals. So imagine being able to top up your cash wallet on Quid by transferring to us ETH, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being able to take sales proceeds you've made because you bought in the right way into an upcoming drop, right? You're able to find a nice buyer there. You've got a gain. You want to get that out. We'll also be able to support the withdrawal flows where we'll transfer crypto to you. So it's pretty close. It's been on our roadmap for a while. There are some legal hurdles to get through, but what I would say is we have a really strong system today for on ramps and off ramps with fiat, and we're just going to basically plug crypto into that so that it's equally as smooth.
Awesome. I love it. I like keeping most of my trading in crypto or stables. So, for people like me, that would be very beneficial.
Yep.
to have that. So, and I'm sure that's beneficial too for onboarding new users, because I feel like people use this a little bit too much, but it does make sense. Like, oh, there's ETH whales, waiting. But in actuality, there's people with a lot of crypto that need places to spend it. So that's just onboarding a whole new wave of people that could spend money in the marketplace.
Totally.
So that's awesome. That is all the questions that I have from the community that I decided to put on this video. I have a couple personal questions, not personal, but like from my end questions, and we got around 15 minutes. We don't have to push it to the hour, but if it goes there, we'll give it a hard cut. I guess this has probably been talked about already in this interview. We talked a lot about Web3. A lot of my content is based around Web3. You'll hear me. I am mainly NFTs. I am mainly crypto. Digital collectibles came after NFTs for me. I don't think I would be into digital collecting if it wasn't for NFTs. But now that I've been in NFTs for a while, it got me into digital collecting. It actually got me into physical collecting as well. I've become a lot more of a physical collector, and recently, like within the past year. What excites you most about Quid being part of this Web3 space? I could probably already guess your answer after a conversation, but I did have that already typed out.
I can't tell you what excites me most because I'm fixated on what you said like 30 seconds ago when you said you went from NFT to digital collectibles to physical collectibles.
Yeah, the exact opposite of almost everyone else.
But I maybe not. Here's what I'd say. Maybe not, because we have the earliest Funko digital collectibles anywhere on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. We went out there, we talked to them, that we built trust with them in 2016, 2017. There's, the earliest and first appearances of Funko Pops in digital collectible format really came on Quid. And one of the things that we shared with them that we saw with our community back then is half of our digital Funko Pop collectors didn't collect physical Funko Pops, but now do. And it's pretty wild. Think about like what you have to do to get your hands on a physical collectible. Like, yeah, you can buy it from Amazon, right? But you kind of have to go to a store, you have to see it, you have to like walk to retail, check out with it, whatever. That experience is streamlined dramatically if you're buying it in digital format. In some ways, the best onboarding for physical art could be NFTs, right? Like the best onboarding for real fashion could be owning the digital version first and outfitting your avatar with it. So I don't think it's ridiculous at all to think that kind of you could go from degen to collector, right? Or that you go from NFTs to digital collectibles to be like, you know what, this is a really fun itch to scratch. I'm going to now move into physical. I mean, there might be artists in 5 years that I would say kind of transition their patronage or their community of buyers from digital first, right? And then what they eventually want to wind up with is the oil and canvas with a frame that can actually be hung on a wall. Or maybe that's just a digital screen, right, that's showing the NFT. But I'm not surprised at all that you went through that experience. I think you're actually, it's not atypical. It's what we're seeing in the patterns.
Sure. And for me, again, I guess to give a little bit more background, it almost like reignited that. Like I collected Pokemon cards when I was a kid. I never was like a hardcore collector, but as I got older, it was kind of like just kind of faded. So it kind of reignited that passion to collect stuff. And then things like we mentioned Gary Vee earlier. I mean, I have, his book games came with, I actually minted the V Friend Series 2, and it came with a physical. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that world of physical versus digital is going to merge and blend, and you might not know the difference. And that's like super exciting. But yeah, I think there's a lot of folks like you and like me. I mean, I was a mild baseball card collector, but this whole experience for me has made collectibles and collecting like something I can obsess about 24/7. Right? It's almost like I'm now at a never-ending 24/7 card convention, whereas that experience really didn't exist except for like a convention center in New Jersey back in the 90s or 2000s. Right? So I think like collecting as entertainment has moved online because that experience is actually just so much more thrilling if done.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, I completely agree. All right, 2 more things and we'll give it a wrap. In Comics and Crypto podcasts, they asked about the future utility. Is there any future utility you could talk about with us today as far as like the short to medium term goes, or is most of the future utility going to be long term?
Well, I think there's actually some. Well, first of all, utility. What does that like mean, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great point. Yeah,
it's probably a word that's like thrown around. Hopefully, we're at the end of that cycle where people can get away with saying the word utility without like defining it more precisely, right?
mm-hmm.
I think for us, we've always had inherent utility in our objects because we're very heavy on set completion. Every object that we issue has companion items that come out in the same set. And it's a really fun chase experience to try to collect all 8 or all 16. So in some ways, having an item sit as a companion to other items in the set give you prestige and can give you awards just by having collected all them or having a very valuable combination of those items. So in some ways, we've had utility for a while in that holding the item also let you win a competition, right? Then we've got Mintables, which honestly, like I think utility is, or portability is utility, right? Like the ability to like travel with something and take it out and actually move it to a self-custody wallet on MetaMask and sell it in another marketplace. I mean, just getting it out of a closed container itself is part of the utility. There's a third layer of utility, which is what we call mint to play, which is where you see the sandbox integration, right? And the ability to sort of, what's the word, teleport, right? An item from one environment to the next and maintain the metadata for that item, but now it's living, breathing, walking in a 3D environment. So I think what you'll find from us is we're going to be consistently adding new layers, almost like a layer cake, where each layer is some additional utility to the point that you may wind up with an object a year from now that is kind of a Swiss Army knife, right? It can go anywhere, it can do anything based on the situation. So our approach to utility is very partner centric. It's very pragmatic, where we don't want to promise something, we actually want to deliver it.
Yeah.
And I think what you'll find is because utility is like undefined and can mean different things to different people, I think we'll take an approach where each item will have a menu of things you can do with it. And then it's up to the collector to be discerning to pick the one that leans into the specific utility they're looking for.
That's a great answer. Great, nice and detailed. So my last question is pretty simple. What's coming up next on Quid? Like what in the short term, medium term are you looking forward to? You mentioned earlier the message center. That sounds like a really big deal. The calendar sounds like a really big deal. I know you guys have a drop coming up soon. If you wanted to talk about that and anything else that you might want to mention.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll tackle it from a product standpoint first. So event calendar, then message center. There's some crypto integration that's going to come at the end of November, early December. That is, I don't want to say it's like what is it, MCP or OUP or whatever, but there's going to be a heavy like loyalty component around the cryptocurrency integration. So like, if you're on Quid over the next like 6 to 12 weeks, just out of hygiene, it's probably a good opportunity for you to, I would say, upgrade your account, right? Add 2-factor authentication, go through KYC, and then set up a MetaMask wallet and associate that MetaMask wallet with your account. You're going to want to have a full account to take advantage of this future loyalty program that is cryptocurrency based. And so that's kind of from a product standpoint, like November, December. From a drop standpoint, I'm not going to reveal the drop calendar yet for October. There are some exciting brands that are going to be in there, potentially even some first appearances. But we do have a drop coming up this week on Thursday. I think it's 1 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. It's called Florida Cat. You'll see this is we haven't even populated the collection page with items, but if your audience wants to read a little bit about it, they'll see it there. Let me say a few things about this drop that I think make it unique. One is it's an animated like comedy show, and animated comedies, whether it's Bob's Burgers or Adventure Time or Rick and Morty, especially Rick and Morty, have done incredibly well on our platform. We have a very strong audience that just loves like adult animated properties. Florida Cat is like right in that sweet spot. The second thing is it's obviously going to be an animated program. I can't reveal where it's going to either stream or where it's going to be broadcast on cable next year, because I just can't reveal that. But this is sort of like a rookie card for that show, right? This could very well be the animated show like a Rick and Morty that everyone's talking about in the summer of 2023. And what's just cool about it is it's a first appearance of the IP really anywhere in officially licensed merchandise. And it's coming on Quid. And if Florida Cat blows up, right, this is really the first merch that you'll ever see for it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then the last little bit is it's obviously mintable, right? More and more of our collections and drops are mintable from the get-go. So if you buy into Florida Cat, whether you love the characters or you love the fact that it's a first appearance of kind of rookie cards, you will be able very, very quickly to mint it to Ethereum, put it on OpenSea. I mean, maybe you're honestly the first to list on OpenSea and the first one to have it exist on the Ethereum blockchain. So there's a lot of firsts with this. And I just love that it's so early for an animated program that has a really strong pedigree behind it. The makers of Florida Cat worked on Beavis and Butthead. They worked on a couple other shows I already mentioned, but don't want to single out. And that this has a lot of potential to kind of blow up. So it's worth the research, worth looking into it. But take a look. And just like a lot of things on Quid, no one's going to be priced out, right? Blind person format. Packs will be priced reasonably, $2 to $10. It's not a stretch for anyone's budget. And it's just going to be very accessible to try to, buy in, get a low, get something you fall in love with, and then go along for the ride.
Can you walk us through the drop experience? So right now you have the main Florida Cat on the main page. So can people just click through this, and once they're on this screen, they'll be able to buy the pack straight from here once it's dropped?
Yeah, totally. And what I would do too is like, here's what I'd say. Event calendar is going to make this a whole lot sexier. Like if there's a pack, you're going to see a countdown clock to when the pack goes live. You'll be able to add it to your calendar so you never miss like a drop, right? You'll be notified 30 minutes before it goes live. But what'll happen this week is probably on Wednesday, the items will show up. And then Thursday morning, next to the listings tab, a tab called packs will show up. And there you'll have the packs. And it's a little known secret, but you can buy into packs from our iOS app or our Android app. You can also buy in from the web. If you buy in from the web, the experience is just a touch faster. So
some alpha for that.
Exactly. Don't tell anyone. It's an alpha. Yeah, exactly. But if you
I'll wait until post this until Friday.
Yeah, exactly. But if any of your books, exactly right, don't give them like the the edge. But yeah, I think what you'll find is it'd be a whole lot cleaner to buy from the web. And I love the web. You can still find a couple of Manchester City boxes that are available. It's a really cool pack opening experience, really fast, really sexy.
Cool.
And so you'll see that brought to bear with Florida Cat.
Heck yeah, man, I'm excited. And yeah, I've never heard about Florida Cat until Quid, so it would be really cool. I like your comparison of buying a rookie card, because that totally makes sense. If the show does blow up and you're holding the first ever NFTs of it, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, I think that's about it, Michael. That's all the questions I had. You did a great job at tackling all of them. I appreciate you for coming on my channel today. Is there any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, man, we're all in this together, and we love your content. We love your channel, and yeah, thanks for the coverage, and thanks for the hard hitting questions. And yeah, man, I think we all got to like spread the love on digital collectibles and NFTs. And so
yeah,
we're so appreciative for everything you do. So thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody watching this that took the time to watch it all the way through. As always, definitely like and subscribe. If you don't already have Quid, download Quid. You can either get it on the web or you can get it via mobile on your smartphone. You've heard a ton about it here, so there's really not much more I can say at this moment. Hopefully I'll have Michael or somebody on in the future, be a little bit more lighthearted interview. I wanted to come off heavy hitting on this interview because I'll be making Quid content in the future. Might as well get past some of the hard questions at the very beginning. With all that being said, thank you again, Michael. Thank you for everybody watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.